Samuel Alito sat back in his chair, his eyes narrowing with that sly glimmer of amusement that so many had come to recognize. The corners of his mouth curved into a smirk, not the broad grin of someone laughing, but the sharp, calculated expression of a man watching chaos unfold exactly as he expected. The set was drenched in bright lights, cameras humming softly as millions tuned in across the nation. This was no ordinary broadcast. Tonight, the air crackled with anticipation, and everyone knew something extraordinary was about to happen. At the center of it all sat Jasmine Crockett, unflinching, her hands folded neatly in front of her. Across from her, Melania Trump exuded her usual ice-cold elegance, wrapped in a designer gown that seemed to shine under the studio lights. Her face was expressionless, sculpted, unreadable, just as it always had been. She had built a reputation as the silent observer of the Trump empire, rarely speaking, rarely revealing. To many, she was a mystery. To some, a victim. But tonight, Jasmine Crockett was about to shatter that polished mask. "You see," Crockett began, her voice steady but sharp, "the public has been fed a story, a narrative that paints you as silent, detached, almost uninvolved." She leaned forward slightly, her tone growing firmer. "But the truth, Melania, the truth is far more dangerous than the silence you've hidden behind." The audience stiffened in their seats. A ripple of whispers broke through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Even the host, who had promised a fiery debate but had not expected this, blinked in stunned silence. Alito's smirk widened ever so slightly. He leaned back farther, resting his chin on his hand, eyes locked on Crockett as though savoring every second. Crockett's gaze did not falter. She spoke with the cadence of a woman who knew she had the world's attention. "For years, people have asked, why are you distant? Why are you absent during critical moments? Why, in times of scandal or national crisis, do you retreat into silence? That silence has protected you. It has made people believe you were uninvolved." Her voice sharpened into a blade. "But silence can also be a cover. And tonight, that cover is over." The words landed heavy, and Melania shifted in her chair. The smallest tremor crossed her lips, but she quickly swallowed it down. She reached for her water glass, her fingers steady at first, then trembling just faintly as she lifted it. "I have evidence," Crockett declared. Her hand slid toward a thick folder resting on the table. The sound of the cardboard scraping against the wood seemed louder than thunder in the tense silence of the studio. "Evidence of secret affairs you've managed to bury for years, not just affairs of the heart, but affairs that granted access to power, to money, to influence." A collective gasp tore through the audience. A producer in the control room muttered a frantic curse under his breath while another shouted into a headset, "Stay on her. Stay on Jasmine." As cameras zoomed in for a tight shot. "These aren't rumors," Crockett continued, her voice rising above the commotion. She tapped the folder with one polished nail. "These are records, eyewitness accounts, and yes, photographs." She let the pause stretch, twisting the silence into suspense before delivering the final blow. "Men who were not just lovers, Melania, but conduits, used to shape deals, sway decisions, and hide truths from the public eye." Melania's mask of composure cracked. Her chest rose and fell quickly now, her lips parting slightly as if to respond, but the words refused to come. The camera's merciless lens captured every flicker of her unraveling. The audience erupted, half in disbelief, half in hungry excitement. Some shouted, some gasped, so loudly it echoed through the soundstage. One woman in the front row clutched her pearls, while another pulled out her phone, already recording what she knew would go viral within minutes. Crockett didn't blink, her voice cut clean through the noise. "Your silence wasn't protection, it was deception." Melania opened her mouth again, but only a faint sound escaped. She reached once more for the glass of water, her hand visibly shaking now. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the trembling fingers of a woman who had always portrayed herself as untouchable. And then it happened. Her eyes fluttered, her skin paled, and in one sudden motion her body went limp. She slumped sideways in the chair, the glass slipping from her grip and shattering on the studio floor. Gasps turned to screams as the audience leapt to their feet. Melania Trump, the woman of silence, the guarded figure of mystery, had fainted, live on national television, moments after Jasmine Crockett unveiled the secrets she had long kept buried. Alito's smirk lingered, sharper now, as if he were the only man in the room who had known this was inevitable. To him, this wasn't just a scandal, it was a spectacle, the unraveling of power itself, and he was watching it with the satisfaction of a man witnessing history turn. The moment Melania's body slumped against the chair, chaos detonated across the studio like a bomb. The sound of the glass shattering against the polished stage floor echoed in the silence that followed her collapse, and then suddenly everyone was moving at once. Stagehands sprinted toward her, the host leapt from his seat, and security rushed the stage. A low hum of panic rose from the audience, swelling into shouts and gasps as they realized they were watching the First Lady of Silence carried away in front of the world. "Get the paramedics! Get them now!" someone shouted, their voice cracking through the commotion. Camera operators froze, unsure whether to keep filming or turn away, their lenses trembling as they tried to hold focus. One of the directors screamed into a headset, "Don't cut! Don't cut! We are live!" The broadcast continued, unflinching, beaming every second of the chaos into millions of living rooms across the globe. Jasmine Crockett remained still, her figure as steady as stone at the center of the storm. She didn't rush forward, she didn't flinch. She simply stood there, eyes locked on the cameras, waiting for the moment the noise around her would settle enough for her words to pierce through again. To her, Melania's fainting wasn't a distraction, it was a revelation in itself, proof of the unbearable weight of the truth she had just unleashed. The host tried desperately to fill the silence as paramedics pushed through the crowd. "We're up, ladies and gentlemen, please stay calm. We are making sure Mrs. Trump is receiving the proper attention." His voice was thin, barely audible over the frenzy. Alito, however, had not moved. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, eyes gleaming. The smirk had not left his face. He was not watching with concern or pity, he was watching with fascination, like a man observing the collapse of a grand tower he had always known was hollow at its core. Social media lit up instantly. Within seconds, clips of Melania's fainting spell began to circulate. On one side of the internet, conspiracy theorists shouted that it was staged, a desperate attempt to escape Crockett's scorching accusations. On the other, hashtags like #MelaniaExposed and #Crockett Reveals spread like wildfire. Screens lit up in living rooms, cafes, and offices worldwide as people replayed the moment she collapsed, rewinding, zooming in, debating whether her fall had been genuine or a performance. But what no one could debate were the documents Crockett had placed on the table moments earlier. Photographs, records, names. The camera had caught enough of them before the chaos to spark headlines in real time. Certain names were already being whispered, attached to powerful figures in finance, politics, and even foreign affairs. These were not harmless dalliances, they were connections that could alter the public's understanding of influence and corruption at the very top. Back inside the studio, Melania was finally lifted onto a stretcher, her pale face illuminated under the harsh stage lights. She stirred faintly, her eyelids fluttering, but she was too weak to speak. As paramedics wheeled her off stage, Crockett stepped forward at last, her presence commanding. The noise of the crowd dulled as though every person instinctively knew she was about to speak again. She turned directly to the cameras, her words slicing through the tension. "The truth has consequences. Tonight, you saw what happens when deception can no longer be hidden. Secrets are like weights, carry them too long, and eventually, they crush you." Her voice was cold, deliberate, but also charged with fire. The audience fell silent, spellbound, knowing that no matter what Melania's defenders would claim, they had all witnessed something irreversible. Protesters were already gathering outside the studio, their voices rising into the night. Some demanded accountability, chanting for investigations into the deals and affairs Crockett hinted at. Others shouted in defense of Melania, accusing Crockett of cruelty. The street outside turned into a clash of signs, chants, and television vans broadcasting the unfolding spectacle to the world. Meanwhile, commentators on rival networks scrambled to react. Some dismissed it as a cheap stunt. Others declared it the most significant revelation in years, a scandal that could reshape not just the Trump legacy, but the power structures around it. Backstage, aides tried desperately to spin the narrative. Statements were drafted, publicists debated whether to claim exhaustion, stress, or outright denial. But the problem was clear: no amount of spin could erase what millions had already seen with their own eyes. The image of Melania fainting was burned into the public consciousness, and the documents Crockett revealed were already fueling investigations. Jasmine Crockett, still on stage, did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply stared into the camera, her voice calm as she delivered her final words of the night. "America deserves the truth, and this is only the beginning." Alito finally broke his silence. A dry, almost mocking chuckle escaped his lips. He shook his head slowly, muttering just loud enough for those nearby to hear, "History doesn't whisper anymore. It screams." And with that, the broadcast cut to black. But the damage was done. The silence Melania had built her identity upon was gone, shattered before a live audience of millions. And the storm Jasmine Crockett had unleashed was only beginning to sweep across the nation.